This show is brought to you by IslamicMusicHub.com.
Hey everyone, I have never expected to do this video in my entire life and documenting all the losses that I have just lost in 4 months, but it seems that I forgot I'm from Palestine, Gaza. My name is Ahmed Naim, a medical student, and this is my story. It all began since October 7 at 6 a.m. when this war started. We evacuated our home from the northern Gaza, and while we evacuate, we try to take the necessary things like clothes and food and some more things that we can take. And then we evacuate to the center of Gaza, near the Al-Shifa hospital, if you heard about it, thinking that the area around the hospital will be safe. But it seems the hospital itself, it's not safe. When I saw the large number of the injured people, which beyond the capacity of any healthcare system, I decided to volunteer to Al-Shifa hospital and help. And I saw things that had changed me mentally and physically and psychologically. I have never become the same person as I used to be before October 7. But it's make it difficult to the doctors to help and serve all the patients that they came as it should be, is the large amount of the patient with severe injury that came at the same time. They were coming by the ambulance and the cars, and a lot of people carry the injured people. And we discovered that the Cuban army used a dump missiles that can cause the greatest possible amount of damage and severe injury. And when we talk about injured, we talk about severe injured. And I have seen children that their feet amputated and they have to choose between either die waiting or live and their feet amputated because of lack of equipment and treatment. And what it's make it even worse that some of these children, their feet amputated without anesthesia, that the doctor themselves did not handle that. And I remember a child whose face was stitched for 3 hours without anesthesia, and the light that we were using is the phone light because the lack of equipment and treatment, anesthesia. The suffering and the pain that he had, it's above the capacity of any human life that he had. And he's just only under 15 years old. And many of those with a 3-degree burns were we unable to identify them because of the severe burn that they had. And many pregnant women and their infants were killed by the Israel Air Force with a cold blood. And if you know, since the beginning of the war, there has been more than 50,000 pregnant women in the street with no healthcare system as supposed to be, with no supplements, without anything that can support them and help them during their pregnancy. And I have seen hero doctors that received news of the death of their whole families and is still working in the Al-Shifa hospital for 4 months. And I have seen children with 5 years old and 6 years old calling their dead mom, wake up, wake up. Seeing children scared and terrified because what they have been experiencing and facing when the Israel bombed their home and get them out from under the rubble. I can't imagine the fear and the suffering that they had, and how they're gonna continue their life with this mentality. If I can continue telling you a story about what I have saw in the hospitals, I'm not gonna stop for the rest of my life. But what I want to say, that it's really beyond the capacity of any human life. Until one day, when the occupation army bombed the internals of the hospital, and it threatened that he will invade and enter the hospital, Al-Shifa hospital, where more than 30,000 civilian people were hiding in the hospital and around the hospital, thinking that it's safe, that there is an international law prevent any army in the war from bombing and invading the hospitals. And thousands of injured people with severe injury who could not evacuate this hospital because they need the treatment, because they could not evacuate by themselves, because they could not walk by themselves, and were the infant who should have a special environment. And by the way, if you know, there is more than 500 infant were killed when the Israeli occupation entered the hospitals, and they have got all the supply there they need, all the oxygen supply, and destroy the special environments that they should have. And the occupation tank were getting closer and closer to the hospital. At that time, my family decided to evacuate from the northern Gaza to the southern Gaza, and I want to be close to my family. It's either we die together or we live together. And we went to Khan Yunis, and we lived in a tent in the refugees camp. They made it because of the large number of people who evacuate from the northern Gaza to the southern Gaza. And I volunteered in Nasser hospital, and many medical points were there, seeing the same suffering, seeing the same pain, and the number of the injured people and dead people was increasing so sharply in the way you cannot imagine. And then the occupation army threatened that he will enter Khan Yunis and he will enter a Nasser hospital. And me and my family decided to evacuate Khan Yunis and go to the southeast part of Gaza Strip, and it's Rafah. And it's the last place that we can evacuate to, because it's the border between Gaza and Egypt. And we lived in a tent in the refugees camp, and I volunteered in Najjar hospital, seeing the same suffering, seeing the same pain, and the number of the dead people and injured people was increasing also in a really sharp way, despite the American government advised the occupation army that they should protect the civilians and help them evacuate safely. But none of that happened. Hoping one day that I will return to my house in the northern Gaza. But it seems that I were wrong about that. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after. And unfortunately, our family business, which was a pharmacy, which barely paid my medical school bills, which were very expensive. And when I talk about tent, I mean tent like this, in the inner walled house, after it was made with a floor, because there was no place to live, a tent made of cover and wood. As you see, it's uninhabitable place, full of dust and bird nest, and this is our tent itself, our bedroom, our kitchen, our living room in the same tent. Every ward house is full of tents, as you see. If it's rain, a lot of water appears in us. And if we want to cook, we buy wood by weight after the occupation cut off the cooking gas. And if we want some water, we walk a long distance to reach the desalination plant. And we often do not find water due to the lack of the fuel to operate the plant. And if you heard about the flower massacre that happened 2 days ago at 4 a.m. at Friday, there's some flower pack into the northern Gaza, and the people running to get the flower for their families. So the Israeli tank opened the fire them and killed them and shoot them. More than 100 people just dead in just a few seconds. And unfortunately, 30 of them were my family member, and this is their name. Their blood was mixed with that floor. The family, the mothers, the sisters, will never back that floor, will never back that bread. They said goodbye to their family to get some food for them, but they will never get back to their homes. Israel killed them. Israel is using the starvation weapon to force them to leave the northern Gaza. I don't know what should happen more than this. I don't know what should happen to make the world do something about this genocide.
This recording was brought to you by IslamicMusicHub.com.